I seem to need a lot of extra water these days, so I decided to take a chance to get it. Well, the topic for the day is honoring the good in Christianity. And this week I thought it would be nice to honor St. Patty's Day, so I have a couple of jokes for you. What happens if you cross poison ivy with a four-leaf clover? Get a rash of good luck. Why should you never iron a four-leaf clover? You don't want to press your luck. Very good. Why are so many leprechauns gardeners? The green thumb. Yep. Why did St. Patrick drive all the snakes out of Ireland? He couldn't afford the airfare. All right, here's another one. Is the Pope Catholic? Was St. Patrick Irish? He was not. He was born a Roman citizen who emigrated to England with his parents. At age 16, he was kidnapped by some Irish scoundrels and made to go to Ireland as a slave. He didn't escape slavery until the age of 22, so that's 6 long years. When he managed to escape and get back to England, he went to a monastery and decided after that 10 years to go back to Ireland and be a missionary to the very people that had hurt him. Oh, well, a little history there. Søren Kierkegaard, a Danish theologian and thinker, philosopher, said these words: if you ever get to thinking that you know all about something, that's not God. That's not God, because nobody knows all about God. We make a lot of guesses, and we try to have a spirituality where we can discover and learn some things. But whatever beliefs we hold dearly, they only work if they work for us. And no person, no philosophy, no religion has got it all right. So, in a spirit of humility, I present today my own viewpoint for you to consider. I have intentionally made my talk short so that at the end, perhaps some of you would like to also share your experience of the good you have seen in Christianity. You can also critique my talk, too. For those of you who don't know me, I was raised an evangelical. I began seminary as a young adult, fully believing I would be working my entire life as a Christian minister. I knew I was more liberal than my parents. But through these years, I've been enlarging. My spirit has wanted to grow, and so I've gone other places to learn and grow spirituality. And I've been attending here most every week and served in many ways for about 10 years now. Today, I'm a spiritual advisor for hospice and an interfaith chaplain. Well, people who self-identify as being part of Christianity today are saying and doing things I am not comfortable with. Quite a bit. Yet, I still feel blessed by what I know of the Christian faith, or some of it. So I want to admit that. I am carried in my most fragile moments by, I believe, the Spirit within, and the Spirit who I believe called Jesus. These are the words that he used the first time he went to a Jewish synagogue and was recognized as a teacher. These are the words recorded by Luke in his book, chapter 4, verse 18. Jesus making his purpose known. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has appointed me to, 1, preach good news to the poor. Point well taken. To me, this means more than not saying bad things or making life harder for those who are having a hard time anyway. But it means actually saying and doing what will be good news in their ears. It means to me, as an individual, keeping an eye out for those less fortunate. And as a part of my community and world, it means seeking to better the lives of those economically and other ways challenged. The second thing Jesus said was his mission on earth, to heal the brokenhearted. Healing is something that has been taught in Christianity historically from day one, as this was a tradition in Judaism. So I feel a follower of Jesus should keep an eye out for healing that is needed in our world. Thirdly, Jesus said his purpose was to preach release and deliverance to captives. I see this happening in our world where Christian nations, well, our nation, let me speak for that one, will go to any extent to rescue prisoners in other countries who are innocent. Also, Christian churches have historically been places that welcome 12-step programs to use their space at little or no cost, in order, as Christians, to have a hand in the terrible disease of addiction and holding out hope when there may be only a flickering candle. I think it means preaching release to captives of any kind. The fourth thing Jesus said was recovery of sight to the blind. Now, this kind of goes along with healing, but specifically blind. And I look around me, I see Christians as well as Muslims and Jews have always been the first to build hospitals, clinics, and programs, repurposing donated glasses, and also doing surgeries to obliterate glaucoma. The fifth thing Jesus said, and the final one, is to let the oppressed go free. Jesus showed compassion for others wherever he went. So it follows that those who say they worship or glorify him should look out for others and follow suit. I'm not qualified to say what has happened in Christianity of late. That would take a historian and a theologian with much greater than myself. All I can say is what I've observed, and what I see is two things: a public Christianity and a private Christianity. The public includes what is said in public as well as written in public places. Private Christianity includes how people pray, which we will never know anyway, right? But to the point, how people identify as Christians and how they act, their actions, their behavior, if you will. Actions are the very heart of religion, let alone faith. So here's the first point I want to make that I observe about Christianity. The Bible is very clear about words and actions. They should match. They should match. And that's a good thing, right? It's called integrity. Christianity purports to encourage integrity. James, the brother of Jesus, wrote, "What good is it, brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but do not have works?" And it gets stronger. "Be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their own hearts, their religion is useless." And isn't this an important lesson? Words and actions should match. And if we don't get there, it should be a goal and an intention. Jesus' teachings are mostly about action. Thought, belief, words, all that came next. Christians historically have interpreted the 5 things that I mentioned earlier as what followers of Jesus should do themselves, and in general, the will of God. But in the Bible as a whole, example after example of leading life to emulate a good God, a God of goodness and love, is evident to any who will look. We as interfaithers look to find the good in every religion, in all religions, and there is much in Christianity to recognize. So even though there's been a movement in my life, I'm still grateful for the principles that I was taught, and these in particular. The first teaching in Christianity which comes to my mind on this topic these days is the concept of how people are to treat the sojourner, the stranger, the alien, and the neighbor. Those words show up a lot, both in the Old Testament and in the New. In the Hebrew Bible, we read Exodus 23:9. "You shall not oppose a stranger, for you know the feelings of a stranger, since you were once strangers in Egypt." Deuteronomy 10, verses 8 and 9. "Your God is mighty and awesome, who is not partial and takes no bribe, who executes justice for the orphan and widow, and who loves the strangers, providing food for them and clothing. And you shall love the stranger as you were once strangers in Egypt." This tradition has carried through to Christianity, for Jesus in Matthew 25 is recalled saying, "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, for I was hungry and you gave me food, thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me." Christianity takes on the Hebrew tradition and intensifies it, actually, adding that people in need are members of God's family. "Truly, I tell you this, just as you did it to the least of these who are members of my family," Jesus says, "you've done it to me." A second hallmark of Christianity that I want to mention today, and there's just 3, is forgiveness. Forgiveness was taught in the Hebrew Bible, and in Jesus' teachings, he continued to encircle the need to always forgive. In forgiving, we don't right the wrong. We don't even say it's excusable. Forgiving is good because it takes away our attachment to the offense. Jesus told the story of 2 brothers, one who asked for his inheritance early and blew it all on fast living real quick. The other brother kept his money safe with his father, and he worked as a faithful son. When the brother who blew it all returns home, he is welcomed by his father. But the faithful son is full of resentment. So this is an occasion to preach forgiveness. I was in Europe, actually in St. Petersburg this past summer, and there was a very big picture, taller, much taller than I can show you. And it's called The Prodigal Son. And of course, in the middle, there is the son that's being loved by his father and embraced. But off in a dark corner, there is a man with a real snarl on his face. He's actually put in darkness. The light is not much on him. And that's the concern that Jesus had. Each of us could turn into those righteous sons. Most of us have tried to live faithful and good lives. And then there's someone who messes up totally. It's easy to be resentful, but it's not good because it puts us ourselves in the dark and it leaves a heavy stone of maybe hate or at least resentment inside of us. And it's hard to walk around and act normal when you got a heavy stone on here. You might remember that Jesus on the cross, one of his 7 last words is, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." We could almost say that for every killing that happens today, even the kind that happen in states that allow capital punishment. God, forgive them, they know not what they do. And I don't know every part of a person's heart. How can we? There's so much unknown. But taking another's life has got to hurt the community. What comes to mind next that my husband brought up to me when I was telling him about this talk I was preparing was that Pope John Paul II was shot in 1980 and wounded quite seriously. I mean, he got several bullets and they were in the abdomen. After his recovery, the Pope decided to take a trip to the jail where this culprit had been residing. He made it known that he had forgiven the man. He even got in touch with that man's family and went to spend time with his mother and his brother. Yeah, doing violence hurts everyone in the community. To forgive everybody for everything is spread through and through Christianity. Well, the 10 Commandments are also something espoused by Christianity. When I was young, I just hated learning them. Of course, I had to. I was in an evangelical church. I had to memorize them, in fact. I had to say them aloud to be confirmed. But I felt rules were a pain to deal with. More adults wanting me to obey them and do things their way, not getting to do what I wanted to do. I felt I was told that we had to be good for God because that's what God wanted. God required it? I don't know. It's good for us when we do good. It's good for us when we obey the 10 Commandments. It's good for our society when we don't go around coveting the things that other people have. It's good for our community when we can count on people not stealing. It's good to obey the 10 Commandments. We don't have to do it for anybody, though. I don't think God's like that myself. God loves us as we are, as we are. Well, I grew up. I realized the 10 Commandments and most other admonitions are just so we can be happier. Hopefully, we can thrive in our communities. Hopefully bring a life that's worth living even to the world, because the whole world is loved by God. Yeah, it's a better place when we honor parents, when we don't kill, when we don't lie, when we keep our work hours down to 6 days and actually chill on the 7th. That's a challenge, huh? These all make for better living. They were given us to be helpful, not harmful. I'll never forget one of my favorite professors. He was a very large, homely man, but he was more loving than a well-known teddy bear. One day I went to his office all frustrated. I said, I've been reading these books that you've assigned us for class, and they're making me all upset. And I don't know what I think of them, but I don't like reading this. He said, oh, they're not helpful, are they? I said, leave them alone then. Leave them alone. You know, and that's how I feel sometimes when I read the Bible. The part that really, it wasn't written for me, or it doesn't make sense to anybody. Gosh, how many translations has it taken to get through to our time? You know, we can read that book, but we got to take it with the knowledge and the heart that God has given us. And there's a time to say, no, that's not helpful. Is it helpful or harmful? That's the standard I like. For reading the Bible, or the work of Kahlil Gibran, or many other religious writings. Is it helpful or is it hurtful? Before I close, I would be amiss to leave out the huge overarching axiom that Christianity has espoused, and that is to love one another. Love even enemies, as Pope John Paul did so publicly. There's an old gospel song I remember, love, 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 love. The gospel in a word is love. Love your neighbor as your stranger. Love, love, love. Those are not new thoughts, but they are certainly worth respecting in whatever religion we find them. And they're worth doing, following through with loving actions. Well, much more time could be spent on this, but now it's your turn to add to the conversation. And I think we're all aware of the negatives of Christianity. I mean, why did we come here? I mean, some of us did leave Christianity to be here, to get a larger picture. So I'd like to ask that we be positive in our remarks and helpful by do some more thinking, the thinking I didn't even get to. What is good and worth honoring in Christianity? Thanks.